Welcome back to The Road, our third episode of the podcast on our road to survival. My name's Mason, in-game as Invisinerd, community manager here, and I am so excited to bring you another podcast featuring Waza, who we met in our last episode, and someone you may remember, Link, is going to join us to talk about some very cool new responsibilities that she's taking on. Plus, we're going to talk about kits, combat, characters, art, and everything surrounding it. What we're planning for the next podcast is going to require your help. We'll get to it all. Let's dive right in right now. In our last podcast, we met Waza, who is back again to talk more about fighters, combat, kits, and the rest. Hello, sir.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We are joined as well by someone who I know that the community may remember from being a player, from being a content creator, and now buried under piles of work here at Scopely. Welcome, Link.
I'm so happy to be here, guys. Super excited to be talking to the community again.
It is going to be an exciting chat to talk a lot about not just what both of you do, but what we see of it here in the game, to talk combat, to talk characters, to talk kits, to talk about a lot of different topics that both of you have been working on and will continue to work on. So let's get started. I do want to eventually get to your day-to-day, and I know a lot of players wonder what it's like for Link in particular, coming from putting together teams to literally putting together teams, but we'll get there. I want to talk a lot about a different subject that players have been hearing a lot about lately. Allegiances is where we're going to start, because when it comes to characters, kits, combat, allegiances is still kind of new and starting to synergize a little bit more. Can we talk about what we're looking toward, maybe the future of allegiances, how teams synergize, and what we're in the early stages of right now?
Okay, yeah. When we started out with allegiances, we noticed that a lot of our competitors in the space have these kind of factions and allegiances and bonds to teams. And I've always liked the idea of a player seeing something that belongs to a certain allegiance and knowing exactly what characters they need to go after. Our game is very difficult in knowing what the value of a character is unless you really understand combat, you know all its ins and outs. So we wanted to create a world where we could kind of show players that, hey, if you get all of the Typhoon characters, that's going to be a really cool infection defensive team. Or if you get all the NWO, you know that you're going to have a really good offensive team. So that's kind of where that started. And obviously there's a lot of cool things that we can do with allegiances in the games. We could restrict certain modes to having certain allegiances. We can have certain features and events that can showcase those characters. And also our game is IP rich. We have tons of cool allegiances: Atlanta, Alexandria, the militia. It just goes on and on and on of all these wonderful factions. And so we want to lean into the IP and build entire teams that are easily recognizable.
I think we've seen that, it started right with the Mythic Trial allegiances, and you're seeing these very cool fighters start to synergize with the rest of the characters on the team, from Lori to Rick 2000 to Morgan to William and the rest. Pretty cool from a player perspective, being able to get your hands on those fighters and use them to kind of team build, to theory craft in different ways. How can this fighter work with this fighter, or these allegiances work with other fighters along the way?
We have a lot of allegiances to plan. We also, and I think it's important to bring up, that we're trying to go back and backfill some of the older allegiances so that there isn't just one team that's available to you in an allegiance. So for example, if you have NWO right now, there's really only one team in the NWO that you can play with. But we're hoping that will improve over time to where you can build all sorts of different attack teams and all sorts of different defensive teams within an allegiance. So it's going to take time. We're definitely not going to slow down on new allegiances, but we also will expand upon the old ones. So don't think Atlanta is done, or some of these older guys are out of the running.
All right, that's cool to hear. Some allegiances feel maybe missing that little piece. So what you're saying is that piece may still be out there.
Absolutely.
And I mean, this is just one part of designing characters, right? When you got to come up with abilities, you got to figure out and factor in the IP, the lore, how they work together. Let's talk about another piece of the kit. When it comes to combat, allegiances play into it. There are so many things we want to talk about here. We may get to specialist skills next, because I know a lot of players see all the different specialist skills. It's part of the puzzle. How do I fit this specialist with this specialist to crack that defense? Let's talk about some possibly new specialist skills.
We're always trying to develop new strategies and new fun specialist skills while keeping old specialist skills relevant. And the next chunk of specialist skills that we have coming, one is follow-up 2. So we all know follow-up is probably the most fun play style attack specialist skill that we can think of, right? We have a new one called Amped, and we have a new special skill called Vengeance. So Link, why don't you talk to the community about follow-up 2 and why we went the way we went with that?
So I personally am super excited about follow-up 2. I think it is a super fun way to play the game. Like follow-up 1 was just so powerful within our game, and everyone remembers how using Arav back in the day was just so powerful and so fun. And we really want to incorporate that into our game again with follow-up 2, an increased version of follow-up 1. Not only are you getting that additional attack after you kill an enemy, you are now getting 100% AP as well. So think about Arav. On his rush, he was able to gain 100% AP, but now it's part of the specialist skill. Now that we aren't including that AP gain in an adrenaline rush, you can only imagine how we're going to amp up that adrenaline rush even further, how we're going to fill that gap. And I am so excited for you guys to see the next character that has this ability.
Okay.
I don't want to say the exact character, guys. I'm being, yeah.
Coming soon.
Yep.
Coming soon.
I'm very excited about that. That's awesome. So follow up to, and you mentioned 2 other new specialist skills?
Yes. So speaking of how amped Link is, let's talk about Amped, the specialist skill. So Amped is it can be used both offensively and defensively, in which it says, plain and simple, if at the start of your turn you're at 100% max HP, you have all your life, then you get 50% of your max AP. So if you have this on an offensive character, turn 1, game begins. No one's done anything. That means you automatically have 100% of your max HP, which means any offensive character that runs Amped will start the match with half their AP. This will bring in these early turns, these command, turn 1, turn 2, rush actives. But instead of creating that AP generation within kits like old Dr. Stevens, we're now putting it into a specialist skill, which is much more controlled. Now, likewise on defense, a player can control who they want to deal damage to, and now they'll have to keep their eyes out for specialist skills that, like Amped, on defensive teams, because if you don't drop them below 100% health, then you might open up a whole new bag of problems. So Amped is very good on offense and also kind of like aggro on defense, where you have to keep up with the character and making sure that you prioritize your attacks. We have a lot of dogpiling in our game where you want to just throw all your attacks on one defensive character, or vice versa, the AI will dogpile all of your attack team. We're trying to broaden the strategies, try to broaden what you think about when you're team building and while you're playing the game to make different decisions to achieve victory. So aggro and amped will be some of those strategies in the future.
So we've got amped, we've got follow-up 2.
And we've got vengeance.
Tell us about
This one's going to be mean. This one's mean.
Okay, so I know right now, especially when most of you are hearing this, we are in a meta that is primarily defined by defensive characters. But what I want our players to understand is that defense is the key ingredient to team building. They set the puzzle. They are the problem that needs to be solved. So different puzzles and different struggles that you face on against defensive teams is kind of the bread and butter of our game. Vengeance, something that we've held off on for a long time, but yeah, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and give the bad news, because I don't want to.
So guys, I've been tasked with the job of delivering vengeance to you, and vengeance is a combination of abide and payback specialist skill. So it's a dual specialist skill combining 2 of probably our most powerful defensive specialist skills, So for those of you who aren't aware, payback is triggered whenever you take like 30% of your max HP and damage on an adrenaline rush or a signature move. And bide occurs where if you take damage over time, just basic attacks, adrenaline rushes, signature moves, no big deal. But once you hit that bar on the bide of 30% damage, you inflict 1.5 times that amount of damage back onto your attacker. So vengeance really does take a vengeance against you. You have to really prioritize how you're going to take down this type of character. And I am so happy to be the one presenting this to you guys. And I am so pumped to see all the strategies you guys come up with to take down this very defensive, very awesome and exciting character.
Keep an eye out for Normalize wherever you can find it.
Yeah, I hear the community right now. Just my ears are ringing a little bit as you read through these new specialist skills.
I was a lot more excited telling people about follow-up 2 than Vengeance. I'll give you that.
Now, we have dozens of specialist skills that are always in the works. We're always working on things. And I wanted to make sure that in any special skill that we talk about, that these are special skills that you're not going to see 6 months from now. Follow-up 2, Amped, and Vengeance are all coming into the game in a very relatively short amount of time. So I would say in the next few months, keep an eye out for all 3 of these special skills.
All right, let's talk about another piece of the puzzle as we've talked about allegiances and specialist skills. Another part of chopping your way through a defense is the weapons you're going to choose. And I know a lot of players have a lot of different thoughts about 4-star, 5-star weapons, how they're delivered, how powerful they are. So let's talk a little bit about weapons and what we have been working on, working towards, and what we're planning.
First, when we consider weapons, we need to know that weapons are there to help fill in voids in your team without having to completely reconfigure the roster that you have. Weapons shouldn't, however, replace the need for other characters, right? We want our characters to be the shining example of power in the game because they're the cool bits. We want weapons to help facilitate. In the past, we have put in an exceptional amount of power into weapons, and we have allowed those weapons to do more than they probably should. So when we talk about the power of weapons, I'm specifically talking about status effects. The more status effects that weapons apply, like compared to a line, we all know the wonderful Carol B weapon out there. The slow that gets added, all these sort of hard crowd control CC sort of status effects. This is going to convolute and complicate our combat. It's going to make the game less understandable, less readable, and you don't know where these sort of status effects are coming from, right? You can learn and master a character and know, okay, this character does stun on its signature move. Those are the things that you'll remember, but you won't know all the random weapons that are equipped to them that will apply these status effects as well. That's not good for game knowledge. It's not good for new players who are coming into the game, and overall muddies the waters when we think about our weapon system. However, you guys are in good hands because one of I would say, the most knowledgeable people in all of our community when it comes to weapons is Link. And Link has a big plan for the future of weapons. She wants to do a kind of a new strategy, and I'll let her speak on what the future of weapons is going to look like.
So just to chime in and to start talking about this, I guess I want to reassure you guys that we're not going to go off the deep end with weapons. We're not trying to, as Waza put it, make the game unplayable for players where it's all about weapons rather than the characters themselves and the abilities that they do. We really want to focus in on supplementing some of the weaknesses among different characters rather than having weapons apply all these status effects that are equal, if not more powerful than some of the characters we have in the game. So what we're focused on for the future is looking at more improved weapons and weapon abilities. And I'm sure you guys have noticed, we've been trickling these in kind of slowly over time. You see it with, I think there's a Sophia's Slugger bat. With that weapon, we decided to increase the proc rate of it. So instead of it being a better chance of stunning, which is like 35%-ish, we've upped it to 60%. We've also increased the amount of healing that it does. And this should be a good baseline of what we're planning on doing with more improved weapons in the future. We're looking at making them still relevant to our game by potentially increasing some of their power levels, so increasing their proc rate, as well as maybe some of their underlying effects. We're not looking for them to be so overpowered that you don't know what this character is going to do because this weapon effect is so outrageous and so powerful and you've never seen it before, but we wanted to add a little extra to the game. We want to make sure that weapons stay within control of the player, and so that they're still helping the game without ruining different fun aspects that we see. Because as Waza mentioned, there are so many status effects that pop up on a character, and I don't know about you guys, but when I see 10 different status effects and I'm just waiting for that roulette to go through, it can be really frustrating, especially when in war or other PvP content modes. So we're really looking to make sure that unique effects, when they're added to the game, yeah, they can be fun. They can be on some bound weapons of some characters to give them a very niche workaround within gameplay. But having unbound weapons with increased status effects, with unique effects that might be fun for a little bit, can also be very confusing and hard on knowledge for the player base. So our route is going with more improved weapons. So you might be seeing more of those 60% chance of this weapon effect occurring, or some healing that is a little bit higher, so say from 15% to 25%, or your crit chance is increased to maybe plus 60 or plus 80. There's a lot of different routes that we can go with this, and you'll be sure to see more improved weapons pretty soon, I would say. I can't give you an exact timeline, but you'll be seeing some very soon, and I hope you guys are excited about them as I am.
Very cool. So we've talked about weapons, we've talked about specialist skills, allegiances. These are all different parts of the puzzle, and just a portion of what you guys as a creative team work on. And another part of that is not just like combat and kits, but the art, right? You have heavy hands in deciding what these fighters look like. Is that right? And how they're designed.
Yeah. So when I first started years ago, I was told that, you need to really understand the art and how you want these characters to work, and you're going to work with the artists on it. So I will start out the art process by, I have all these ideas in my head. I go figure out what I want that character to look like. I want the emotional state that the character is going to be in, a little bit of the personality for the character, all those sort of things. I get those thoughts in my head of what I want them to be, and then I spend every single day with our art team showing them those references, showing them the backstory of the characters. So whenever you see, especially a new IP like The Hidden, those will all come from the designers. So I wanted with The Hidden, I wanted this really cool, like, young adult team of assassins working for some clandestine organization who wants to take out all the warlords, the small warlords in a survivor world, right? Like in the zombie apocalypse, there's going to be all these different people who take over and get power, and you want to silently shut them out. So I went and created every member of this all-star cast and how they look and their representation with weapons. So like when you see Dario and he's got that wolf-headed sword, and you've got Ghost, who is obviously a wolf, and so you can see these kind of throwbacks to these animals of kind of how they view their kind of team. We're trying to tell a story in the art. We're working with the artists to make sure that in the mythic world, we really wanted to step up our game, right? We really wanted to showcase some cool art rather than just having a character stand there in some battle pose, or looking at the player in their dossier. We wanted to make sure that there were some really amazing art that really tell a character's story without having to actually tell the story. And so, like, a perfect example to stay on The Hidden is when I originally created The Hidden, I knew that I wanted there to be a dog companion. And so I created Eva as the sniper of the team, and she had this wolf as a pet that would also serve as like one of the members of The Hidden. And at the time, I did not want to release Ghost. I wanted the Ghost to be kind of the premier character for The Hidden. So I put it into the art for Eva, and a lot of players were asking, well, what's this dog? What's the story behind the dog? Why is the dog there? And I knew that later on, much later, we would reveal Ghost as a character, and in that same art, I wanted to put Eva to throw back that they are together, so you know that they're while Ghost is a member of the Hidden, Ghost has a special connection to Eva and Eva to Ghost, and you can see those personalities coming through. So that's very much telling a story. I think we can all agree that Mythic has many more scenes of things happening that showcase how badass a character. When you look at Michonne 2K and she's dashing through a wave of walkers and just splitting them up into a billion pieces, that's a much better piece of art than what we've had in the past. So yeah, as designers, it's our job to help the artist, and I don't want to take anything away from them, because I'm gonna be straight with you. I might say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there's a hat on this, or a monocle here, or what if we cut off a head over it this way, or smash into this? But it's the artists who really show their creativity and have been putting together some of the wildest, coolest looking art I've seen in my career. And so props out to those artists who really take a challenge and want to showcase the coolest pieces of art they possibly can. So whenever you see something in an art piece and there's a little addition, keep an eye out for little bits of stories of what's to come in the future of these characters and their art.
Very cool. And if I can, just to speak on behalf of the community for about the 1 year that we've been in this Mythic era, the art, unbelievable. I think everybody has one shared opinion across the whole community, and that it's been a whole new level in the Mythic era. So kudos to the team and to you for doing that. It's super interesting because even me as a player, I had no idea how this worked, right? Like how a character gets a hairstyle or a hat or whatever, but it's cool to know how that process works.
Yeah, we definitely, it's very important to Scopely and the team that whoever's designing characters is not just a master of the combat, right, but also a master of the IP. We have to know every ounce of the comics, every ounce of the show, every ounce of Telltale. We put Easter eggs into things, right? Like, people will ask why a certain weapon was chosen. And it's like, well, in issue 78 of the comics, they have this for a scene, right? Like, we are masters of the IP, and we feel like that's the only way to bring about these really emotional or really cool art pieces that people who are just as in love with the IP can really appreciate.
I love that. So that, like, again, a piece of the job that I didn't know you had or was a part of your day to day. So as let's transition a little bit from like what all the players see to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on what happens behind the scenes. I think in our last conversation, you easily explained your job is making the duders, but it's so much more than that we've learned here. But what is a day to day kind of like for you and Link? I want to know for you as well how those two things play together, if you can kind of go through what it's like.
The art of making characters is it's very intense. My day-to-day is doing the research from two different standpoints. One being analytics, so the data that we have behind the scenes that show what characters are popular, what teams are popping off, what people are hiding on their rosters. Like, I don't think many people know that we can see onto your rosters your little secret hidden strategies and what characters are being used, and we get to gather that information to see if what we're creating is working. What characters are taking off in the meta. Like right now, our analytics are showing that Veronica, a character that came out a while back, is slowly but surely creeping up in win rate and being used a little bit more and more. So we're seeing that, we can pick up on those slow shifts that happen within the meta. So first, we research all that to kind of figure out what's truth and what's in our heads. The second is that we communicate with the players intensively. I have hours and hours and hours I spend every week communicating with players from all different levels. You know, there's a lot of people who think that we only talk to the top, or we only talk to Discord, or we're only talking to Players Council. That's the furthest thing from the truth. I talk to a ton of free to play, mid levels, top tier, number one factions. You know, everybody from all walks of life. My door is always open, and so players who play your game will tell you all the things that they're passionate about, all the things that they love, and all the things that they desire from your game. So listening to them is of the utmost importance in the job of creating these characters. So we gather those two pieces. And then once we have those two pieces, we shovel that together into what we want or how we plan out a meta. Now, the meta is something that we want to have happen, right? We want characters to go a certain way, but the players ultimately decide what is good and what is not good, right? When I released Rosita free to play to the player base, I was like, that's a banger. And the players were like, we don't really like her. And now it was months later that people changed their opinions on Rosita, but at the time it was like, nah, we don't like this. So players will often determine what is very good, and then we need to pivot. So we're constantly planning out this combat meta strategy that goes months and months and months out. We have long-term strategies with tech that we're planning all the time, trying to plan new tech, new special skills, new ways to play the game. And then we have to build those characters, and what Lauren is learning right now is how we have to constantly go back and cross-reference older characters to make sure we're not making characters too similar to something we've released previously, that we're not stepping on any toes, that a team works and functions well together. It's just, it goes on and on, the litany of things that you need to do to try to create a world where hundreds of characters that are doing a lot of things. I think we can all agree a mythic character does probably too many things at this point, but and making sure that functions and it doesn't break down. So we spend a lot of our time doing that. And like you said, we also have to spend time working with our team on art, the story. I work with our writer, who is a wonderful story writer of many, many years, who I will go to him and I'll tell him the story of the Hidden and how I want it to work, how NWO and Titan is like this guy who runs the show, and how I created the Trader, and the Trader was this guy who knew all the little secrets of how to get guns and drugs and whatever he needed out to the communities. And then he takes that and turns it into dialogue. So we're working with those guys. We're working with the artists. We're anything and everything that has to do with a character that's delivered to you as a player. We have a large part of that process from beginning to end. And then we're actively having to play the game. At Scopely, we also believe that if you're designing for a product, if you're designing for a game, you need to know from the eyes of a player what good is and what fun is. And so as designers who are designing these characters, we actively have to be in and playing the game. Now, of course, because of conflict of interest, we can't play at top level factions. We can't be a part of War of Champions, which sucks. I would love to play in that, but we can participate in events and lower level wars and things that aren't a part of the bigger picture to make sure that we have a good eye on what you, the player, enjoy. So it's a long process, a lot of meetings and a lot of strategizing, and then of course we have to carry that strategy to our live ops team, who is trying to obviously make a business out of it and sell it. We have to tell them, okay, you should probably release this character before that character, or if you push this character up, then that's not very good. Or if you try to sell this character when we're trying to source it as a counter to a strategy in the game, then that's going to limit its availability and probably not counter that strategy. So we have to work with them in figuring all that out too. So it's a constant, all day, every day event where you're thinking, eating, breathing, sleeping, how these characters work and function within the world of The Walking Dead.
So, and I know that that's a lot of like your responsibilities leading up to some stuff we'll kind of talk about with some new responsibilities that Link is undertaking here in a little bit. But until now, Link, talk about how that would then play into your position since you came on to the company.
Yeah. So my job is all about finding bugs. And when I say bugs, I mean when things are not working as intended. So there's really like 3 different stages that I go through. There's like functionality testing. So on all these awesome characters that Waza puts up, I need to make sure that they work as intended. And many of the times I'm telling him, no, this does not work. It does not exist. This cannot function. But that's a yet. So as Waza was mentioning, like we're always working on new tech for the future and new abilities and finding new ways to make the game really fun. So whenever I come across any of these functional abilities that aren't quite working exactly as we want, like we put in requests and stuff so that in the future we will be able to use these abilities. And that's why in some of these updates that you see in the game, there are updates to combat, updates to different characters and stuff, because we've worked out ways to make this work as intended. I guess moving on from that, the next part of testing characters is when like a character's fully built out. And you know, this is what we want the character to do. We know this works. Now we just got to make sure that it actually works at each different stage of progression. And this, I will admit, can be quite tedious at times, but for me, it's really exciting. Like, I love figuring out how characters work. I love finding their niches. I love finding the intricacies of their kits and looking at that first layer of combat, that second and third and fourth layer. And it's just so interesting to me, and understanding how it all comes together. So as Waza put it, like within allegiances and stuff, you can see a lot of team synergies, and identifying those synergies and understanding how they're all working towards one like common goal. It's super exciting. And I find myself so immersed within the combat of our game. You'll see me sometimes on Discord, in the bug channels and stuff, trying to talk to players to figure out what they're experiencing in games, because we've all sent a video in at one point of saying this isn't working as intended. And I love to see that stuff. I love being able to reach out to the community and talk about different bugs or talk about different combat mechanics, because there is a lot to our game. And a lot of that knowledge is so hard to impart on others. I feel really honored whenever I have a chance to help someone understand even one small aspect of our game. And whenever there's like a bug that comes up, I will follow up with you if you want. If you reach out to me, I will reach back, because I think it's so important to have these relationships within our community. And having these relationships with everyone within the game, I think kind of humanizes the developers and the community together. And, you know, I'm always going to have my door open to anyone who wants to talk about combat mechanics and the game. And if anyone's ever reached out to customer service saying, you know, there's this bug, and they come back to you with some combat answer, mechanical answer, some game knowledge imparted upon you, you were probably kind of talking to me. So if you got an answer like that saying, oh, actually this character had focus, but also this other resistance, and that's how this all worked together, that was probably my answer to some degree. So I really love being able to help the community any way that I can. And, you know, like testing out these characters is a huge and daunting task, because it's not just a checklist. A lot of it's just ad hoc testing. So it's whatever my brain comes up with. So these first, second, third, fourth, sometimes fifth layer deeps of combat, it's ingrained in my blood at this point. And I love it just so much. And talking about it, like I could probably talk about combat for days and days and days. And I feel like I'm doing that right now. So I'm going to cut myself off, you know, gotta be reasonable. But a lot of it's just bug testing.
You're great. You're doing great. And I think that that's how it started, right? Like you love to find those things and made some videos about it. And now look for me, and probably you as well, Link. I don't know if I started playing games going, someday I'm going to work on a game, but now it's a reality. And how cool is this, that not just like you and your passion and what you're passionate about is like, it's what you do now. And me too. And so Waza, to, you know, someone who's here on the inside and opening his arms and doors to let us in is pretty cool. And I think you said it. I don't think a lot of players have any idea that there are actually people back here doing this. They see a logo or whatever and want to yell at. And I understand, because there's passion. I'm invested as well. I think Link is invested as well, and Waza on a much higher level. We all get it, and we're open to hearing that. So I'm super excited to be here to talk about what is happening next, if we are ready to pass that torch, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So you brought up a lot of good points, Mason, and I kind of just want to bring that back to full circle, which is Scopely can kind of you can kind of get hidden and look at Scopely as an entity or a product that just wants your money. I can understand that. As somebody who's been gaming my whole life, I've been on that side of the industry where I know as a player, it's like, do these guys even play your game, right? Like you have these frustrations where you're like, this company just doesn't understand. But I've been working on the project now for close to 3 years, and during that time, I can tell you that everybody from the floor to the top are all just massively interested in and have a huge passion to try to make the game as entertaining and wonderful for the players as humanly possible. It's just also that conflicts with it being a business and having to make money. And sometimes we have to make certain decisions to make it a business. But from the people like Mason, who's here running this podcast, to Lauren and myself who are creating characters, we love the game. We have a massive passion for it. But to speak to what Mason was alluding to, after 3 years of working on a product, you're always looking to broaden your horizons, move on to different projects, or find out what the future of your career holds. And mine is elsewhere. I am leaving the team and to start a different project. And during that time of us figuring out what we're going to do, we have decided that Lauren would be a fantastic replacement, as she is ingrained herself into the community. She understands the combat at a level that most people could only dream of, and has an immense amount of passion that I've seen in her for years, as I started talking to her several years ago when she was just a content creator. So when I'm passing off the torch to Lauren, I have all the faith in the world that she will create 10 times better characters than I ever could. And then and many months from now, you guys will be looking back and wondering why you ever had to put up with Waz as a character designer in the first place.
Very cool moment right now. And it's, by the way, I think so much bigger than just our game. As a young gamer, to come to a point, well done, Link, unbelievable achievement. Level up to you've maxed. I don't think you've maxed yet, but you're top tier, and I'm just so excited. How are you feeling?
Well, the first thing I want to just point out is that although Waza mentioned, like, I'm going to be 10 times better, that does not mean that we're in a new era of tunes. I'm not just saying we're going Mythic 2.0 right now. I'm very aware of how our game works, and honestly, I'm super excited and honored by the opportunity. Like, Waza has been my mentor since the start. He's been my friend, and he's been my biggest advocator. He's actually the one who ended up getting me my first job at Scopely. And if you asked him, he'll tell you, I was pretty hesitant at first to even take the opportunity. I was thinking of a community at the time, and I wanted to keep on putting out good content for everyone and contributing. And over time, it became obvious to me that the best way for me to represent the community, to help the community, to progress the game, was to be on the other side of things. And I'm sure, Mason, you've experienced that as well, that now that you see the inner workings of things, like, you as a player and as part of Scopely can kind of input that personal knowledge, that personal experience, and you've definitely helped make this game a better place. So thank you as well, because I know that it's a big achievement for the both of us to be a part of this team. And, I'm super excited at the prospect of moving forward. And I want to assure everyone that I'm going to work my damn heart. I don't know if I can say damned, but I'm going to work my hardest to represent the community well, to remember the players, to make the company proud as well. And for everyone that's believed in me, that has believed in me from the start, I don't take any of this lightly. And I just want everyone to know my door is always open to talk about the game. And, I want to assure you that I'm here for you guys as much as I'm here for Scopely. And, I'm super excited and very honored at how everything has turned out. And just thank you, everyone.
Pretty cool to see your story play out in a public light like it has, going from recording on your phone to making the things that you would have recorded on your phone. It's pretty cool.
So I'd like to add to this, to anybody who's listening, who wants to think about having a future in making games or game design. Going to college and getting a degree, perfectly fine. But I also started my career by just being very passionate about a video game, and a game designer saw that passion and took a chance on me, and that's how I got into the industry. Then I went, because I'm a player-driven designer, I have in my career then seen people like Link, who have an incredible amount of passion for the product, and I talk to them, and then I see that passion and I give Link a shot. And so my advice to anybody who really wants to focus on maybe getting a career is let that passion be seen. Let people know your passion and show that you are an expert at the thing that you love. And when people see that passion, you'd be surprised what doors open for you. And I'm so beyond happy that I could that I got to see Lauren's passion and see her professionalism and see how she understood the game better than everyone else. And I could extend that hand to her. And now look at her. She is going to be a game designer and starting her career. And it's just a wonderful story. And I hope the best for her. And I hope the best for anybody else who has that same passion.
A great story for gamers, for women, for the industry. I think it's pretty awesome. So congratulations, not just to Waza, but to Link on amazing advancements, both of you. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to chat about all this stuff. Awesome news on top of fun little pieces of information that lead to what is coming down the road. Thank you for being a part of the podcast, Waza. Link, appreciate your time.
Glad to be here. Glad to talk to you guys, and keep on surviving.
Thanks for having me, guys.
He said the thing. Pretty cool moment. And as we watch the last of what Waza has created roll out over the next several weeks, we raise a glass. Very excited to see what Link has in store for us after that as she takes the reins. A very telling sign, I think, from a member of Player Council in regards to Link's knowledge. Asked one of the members of the team during our first conversation, on a scale of 1 to Link, how well do you know combat? And none of us can measure up to Link's knowledge. I'm so unbelievably excited and happy about this. I couldn't wait to share. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. In the next episode of The Road, we want to know all the questions you have for the team. What's on your mind? Let's do an Ask Me Anything. What questions have you been dying to ask members of the team? What do you want to know about the road to survival and what's on the way? Let us know. Consider subscribing to catch the next episode and other weekly giveaways and our survivors updates and much, much more. You can find links to our web portal where you'll get information on the blog, offers from the shop, and so much more, including our official Discord. Description of this video has all the links. Appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one.